Hey there, Michelle McQuaid here. I was introduced to Appreciative Inquiry in the very first day of my Positive Organisations class during my Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, when Professor David Cooper-Ryder quietly rocked up into class and, with two very simple observations, changed my life personally and professionally forever. The first observation he shared was that every action we take is preceded by a question. And that sounds so simple enough, but for me in that moment I realised I'd spent most of my life so focused on all the actions I had to be taking that I wasn't very often slowing down to thinking about the questions that were driving them. And the second observation he shared that day was that it's the questions that look for the true, the good and the possible in ourselves and others and situations that enable us to flourish. And I realised that when I had stopped to think about the questions, normally the questions were far more focused on what wasn't working and what needed fixing than they were on the true and the good and the possible. And so this was my introduction to Appreciative Inquiry. It changed the way I worked and it's changed the way I live my life. For me, the power of Appreciative Inquiry to accomplish the unexpected is best brought to life in the first moments of an AI summit during the discovery paired interviews, when you get to stand back and just watch this room full of people, often who might have been strangers when they walked in a few moments earlier, or even people who've spent a lot of time together but perhaps don't feel as connected to each other as they could. And you watch as they start to ask these questions around the true and the good and the possible of each other and the situations they're in, and their eyes start to light up and their bodies start to lean into each other, their voices become more animated as they start to discover the strengths they each have to bring. And I love this moment because not only do you get to see the best in a room full of people, but you also see trust and psychological safety being accelerated in a way that I've never seen any other intervention in workplaces be able to pull off. And by the time you get to those discovery interviews, you have this room full of people, full of opening hearts and opening minds to what they might be able to achieve together. And to me, that is definitely part of the power of Appreciative Inquiry. For me, the biggest innovation around how I've been using Appreciative Inquiry is in trying to perfect the art of a one-day AI summit. Now, of course, Appreciative Inquiry summits are normally held over 3 or 4 days, but in Australia we've had a lot of requests from schools to use AI summits to help them embed positive education approaches, and getting teachers out of the classroom for more than a day is really challenging. So we've been using the 4D process in just one day by having them come in the morning and going straight into discovery with paired interviews about what's working well already around bringing out the best in students and teachers and families in their school community, and then sharing what those groups have been finding with each other. Then after morning tea, moving them into the dream phase and getting them to try and imagine what might be possible for students, for teachers, for the whole school community if they were really being able to build on the strengths they discovered first that morning. Then after lunch, we get them to vote with their feet and move into some how might we statements that have been pulled out of the themes of their dreams, and to start first brainstorming and voting on some ideas and then rapidly prototyping how they might be able to bring those ideas to life in their school. And then we normally do a working afternoon tea as we start to move into destiny, and we have an ideas marketplace where they can move among the design prototypes and start to vote for the ideas that they love, that they think are really great and what they like about them, for the ideas that they like and think would be even better with, so that they can do some feed forward for those groups, and the ideas that they'd like to volunteer on, including their own groups. And we wrap out the day in that destiny step by letting the groups come back together around their prototypes, take in the feed forward that they've been given, and then decide if they're at a red light, orange light or green light stage to move forward, making it really clear that there's no shame in being at any one of those stages. Sometimes an idea is red light just because it's not the right time, or it needs more work, or we didn't have the right people to really figure out where it would go next, and so it's going to need a lot more conversation. Other times an idea is greenlit. It's like, yes, we can get out there and start doing this straight away, or we can pilot it somewhere in the school to get going. And the very last thing, of course, we have them do in that destiny step is whether they've been in an idea that's going forward or not from their prototype, to also think about what they can do personally, one thing that they can take back into the school over the following days to help honour the dreams that they've come up with and move them forward. So this one-day AI summit we've seen now in all sorts of school environments be really effective at accelerating positive education approaches and creating this beautiful ripple of change across school environments that then flows at least for the next 6 to 12 months, but in most cases for many years. The one other innovation I'd add around appreciative inquiry that's really been helping me, that was gifted to me by Professor David Cooper-Ryder, is the idea that behind every cynic is an unexpressed hope. And this has been so powerful for me as I've tried to introduce appreciative inquiry into sometimes quite cynical or proudly deficit-based environments where looking for the true, the good and the possible does not come naturally for the people involved. But I've learned over the years that it's not my job to defend appreciative inquiry. Rather, it's my job to be able to ask questions and open conversations about how we create change in workplaces or other systems in ways that invite the whole system to be part of the conversation and empower them to self-organise around the things they care most about, to take ownership of. So whenever I encounter a cynic as I'm introducing appreciative inquiry approaches, I know that that's my cue to start asking more appreciative questions. To ask, okay, well, when in the past has this cynic perhaps seen something working really well when it came to creating change in their workplace or system? And if we could do that here, then what might be possible? What would success look like for them? And how might we move from where we are to where we want to be and really get people involved and committed to being able to make that change happen? And then what might be the right next step? If it's not an appreciative inquiry summit or the like, where is there appetite and energy for us to be able to start? And so remembering that behind every cynic is an unexpressed hope, I think is an incredible innovation and gift from the appreciative inquiry world to help us create more positive changes at a pace that's right for the stakeholders that we're trying to get involved.